It started as a dream come true. The Donovan family had finally moved into their new home, a sprawling house in the middle of an idyllic suburban neighborhood. The family of 5, Matt and Claire, their teenage son Josh, their curious 8-year-old daughter Emma, and their toddler Lily, felt like they had found their forever home. The first few weeks were blissful. The children explored the backyard, Claire decorated the rooms with meticulous care, and Matt spent his weekends fixing small imperfections. But as the newness of their home began to settle, the strange occurrences began. It was Emma who noticed it first. "Mom, the TV talks to me at night," Emma said one morning over breakfast, her voice small but insistent. Claire chuckled, assuming her daughter had let her imagination run wild. "What does it say?" Claire asked, humoring her. "It doesn't say anything. It whispers. Like, 'Stay,' and 'come closer.'" Matt dismissed it as a phase. "She's just getting used to the house," he reassured Claire. But then, the static began. Late at night, the family's television would switch to static, no matter which channel it had been on earlier. At first, Matt blamed a faulty cable connection. But the static always returned, louder and harsher each night. One evening, as Matt tried to turn the television off, a single word crackled through the noise. "Help." Matt couldn't sleep that night, but he didn't share what he'd heard with Claire. He didn't want to alarm her or the kids. Yet, the next morning, Emma said something that sent chills down his spine. "The people in the TV are sad," she said. "They need help. But they said I can't help them unless I come to their world." Matt snapped. "Emma, that's enough. Stop talking about the TV." Emma's lips quivered, but she nodded. That day, Matt unplugged the television, thinking that would solve the problem. But the disturbances escalated. Doors slammed shut on their own. Chairs moved slightly out of place. Lily's toys, which she always left scattered around, would be stacked neatly in eerie towers when no one was looking. The family's dog, Max, refused to enter the living room, barking and growling at an unseen force. And then, one night, Emma vanished. It was Claire who discovered she was missing. She had gone to check on Emma, only to find her bed empty and her room freezing cold. "Matt!" Claire screamed, waking the entire house. The family tore through every corner of the house, calling Emma's name. But she was nowhere to be found. Then, they heard it, a faint voice, barely audible over the static of the unplugged TV. "Mommy? Daddy?" Claire rushed to the living room, her heart pounding. The television, though disconnected, glowed faintly with static. And there, within the swirling gray screen, was Emma's face. "Emma!" Claire cried, dropping to her knees. "Mommy, I'm scared," Emma's voice crackled through the static. "They won't let me go." Who won't let you go?" Matt demanded, his voice shaking. "The shadows," Emma whispered. "They live in the walls. They're lonely." The Donovans didn't know where to turn. The police were baffled, unable to explain how a child could simply vanish. Desperate, Claire contacted a local paranormal investigator, Dr. Evelyn Marks, who specialized in hauntings and unexplained phenomena. When Dr. Marks arrived, she immediately felt the oppressive energy in the house. "This isn't a normal haunting," she said. "It's a poltergeist, a manifestation of trapped souls. But this one is unusually powerful. It's feeding off the energy in your home. And it wants Emma." Dr. Marks and her team set up cameras, sensors, and recording devices throughout the house. They conducted seances and EVP sessions, trying to communicate with the spirits. Through their efforts, they learned the horrifying truth. The house had been built over an old cemetery. While the headstones had been moved, the bodies had not. The spirits, restless and angry, had latched onto the Donovans, drawn by the vibrant energy of the children. They don't mean harm, Dr. Marks explained. But their loneliness has twisted into something dark. If we don't act soon, Emma may never return. Dr. Marks devised a plan, a cleansing ritual to banish the spirits and free Emma. But the ritual required a conduit, someone willing to enter the spirit realm and guide Emma back. "I'll do it," Claire said without hesitation. Armed with candles, chants, and a protective talisman, Claire lay on the living room floor as Dr. Marks guided her into a trance. The room darkened, and a cold wind swept through the house. Shadows danced on the walls, growing thicker and more menacing. Claire found herself in a shadowy, gray world, a mirror image of her home, but lifeless and decayed. She called out for Emma, her voice echoing eerily. "Mommy!" Claire turned to see Emma, huddled in a corner, surrounded by dark, faceless figures. Their whispers grew louder, more frantic, as Claire approached. "You can't have her!" Claire screamed, clutching the talisman. Its light flared, sending the shadows recoiling. She grabbed Emma's hand, pulling her close. But the shadows didn't retreat. They surged forward, their whispers turning into angry screams. "Claire! Get out now!" Dr. Mark's voice echoed faintly through the void. With all her strength, Claire held on to Emma and willed herself back. The shadows clawed at them, but the talisman's light grew brighter, driving them back. Claire awoke on the living room floor, gasping for breath. Emma was in her arms, sobbing but alive. The house was eerily silent. The oppressive energy was gone, leaving only an unsettling stillness. Dr. Marks confirmed that the spirits had been banished, though traces of their presence would likely linger. The Donovans moved out the next day, leaving behind the house that had turned their dream into a nightmare. But as they drove away, Emma glanced back at the house. For a brief moment, she thought she saw a shadowy figure standing in the window, watching them leave. "Mommy," Emma whispered. "I think they're still lonely." Claire squeezed her hand. "They're not our problem anymore." And yet, deep down, Claire knew the truth: some things are never truly gone. In 1957, deep in Detroit, Michigan, at the height of the automotive boom, a unique Plymouth Fury rolled off the assembly line. Unlike its peers, this car gleamed with a sinister red and white finish, a shade so deep it seemed to drink in the light. Workers claimed they felt uneasy around it, some refusing to work near it altogether. One assembly line worker met an untimely death when the hood slammed shut without warning, crushing his hand. Another was found dead in the driver's seat, the cause of death labeled a heart attack, though his face was frozen in a rictus of terror. The car was sold, and the tragedies began. Fast forward to the small town of Rockville in 2023. High school senior Eli Jackson was an outcast. With thick glasses, a lanky frame, and a love for retro music and cars, he spent most of his time tinkering in his garage or dodging bullies at school. His best friend, Tommy Bennett, was his polar opposite, a popular athlete who often stood up for Eli. One day, while scouring a local junkyard for parts, Eli stumbled upon something extraordinary: a decayed, rust-covered 1957 Plymouth Fury. Despite its dilapidated state, there was an aura about it, an almost magnetic pull. "This thing's a beast," Tommy remarked, running a hand over the hood. "I think it's beautiful," Eli said, already imagining restoring it to its former glory. He bought the car for a mere $300 from the junkyard owner, who seemed all too eager to part with it. "She's bad news," the old man muttered, but Eli paid him no mind. Eli spent weeks restoring the Fury, which he nicknamed Crimson Fury for its distinctive color. As he worked, strange things began to happen. Tools Eli misplaced would suddenly reappear, polished and gleaming. Scratches and dents in the car seemed to vanish overnight. One morning, he woke to find the Fury's engine running, purring softly, even though he hadn't installed a battery yet. Tommy grew uneasy. "Something's not right with that car, man." But Eli was enamored. He spent every waking hour with the Fury, often talking to it as if it were alive. When the restoration was complete, the car looked brand new. Its glossy red paint shimmered, and its chrome accents sparkled. The once shy and awkward Eli now exuded confidence, much to Tommy's concern. The first incident occurred during a party. Eli, now driving the Fury to school and social events, had started attracting attention. At the party, a group of bullies, led by the arrogant and cruel Chase Keller, taunted Eli about his grandpa car. They poured beer over the Fury, laughing as they stomped on its hood. That night, as Chase walked home alone, the Fury appeared. Its headlights blazed like twin suns, and its engine roared with a predatory growl. Chase ran, but the car pursued him relentlessly, toying with him before finally running him down. His mangled body was found the next morning, with tire marks scorched into the pavement around him in a perfect circle. Over the next few weeks, the Fury's influence over Eli deepened. He became more confident, even arrogant. He distanced himself from Tommy and began dating Lila Harris, one of the most popular girls in school. Lila, however, noticed Eli's growing obsession with the car. One night, she joined Eli for a ride. As the Fury sped down a deserted highway, Lila complained about how Eli was changing. The Fury's radio crackled to life, playing a haunting love song from the 1950s. The doors locked, and the windows rolled up. The car's interior grew stiflingly hot. Lila screamed, begging Eli to stop, but he seemed entranced. Finally, the Fury relented, unlocking the doors. Lila fled, vowing never to get in the car again. Tommy began to investigate the Fury's history. He discovered that it had been owned by a string of people, each of whom met gruesome ends. One owner had driven it into a lake, only for the car to resurface years later, unmarred. Another had tried to destroy it with explosives, but the car reassembled itself. Tommy confronted Eli, who laughed off his concerns. "You're just jealous," he sneered. But deep down, Eli knew something was wrong. He tried to abandon the Fury, leaving it at a remote field, but the car always returned, waiting outside his house like a loyal dog. As the Fury's malevolence grew, it began targeting anyone who crossed Eli. A teacher who gave Eli a failing grade was found crushed in her own driveway. Lila's new boyfriend was run off the road by a fiery red car that no one could trace. The town descended into fear, with whispers of a ghost car spreading like wildfire. Tommy decided to take matters into his own hands. He enlisted Lila's help, and together they confronted Eli, begging him to destroy the Fury. "It's not just a car," Tommy said. "It's evil." Eli refused, but as the Fury's body gleamed ominously in the garage, he finally admitted, "I don't think I can stop it. It won't let me." Determined to end the Fury's reign of terror, Tommy and Lila hatched a plan. They lured Eli and the Fury to an abandoned factory, claiming they wanted to help him hide the car from authorities. As Eli parked inside, Tommy activated a massive hydraulic press. The Fury fought back. Its engine roared to life, and it rammed into the press, narrowly missing Tommy. Lila screamed as the car turned toward her, its headlights blazing with fury. Eli, torn between his attachment to the car and his friends, threw himself in front of the Fury. "Stop," he shouted. The car hesitated, its engine idling as if considering his command. Taking advantage of the moment, Tommy triggered the press. The walls closed in around the Fury, crushing it. The car let out an otherworldly scream, its headlights flickering before finally dimming. The town returned to normal, but Eli was never the same. He apologized to Tommy and Lila, but his guilt weighed heavily on him. Months later, as he passed by the junkyard where he'd first found the Fury, he froze. There, nestled among the wreckage, was a familiar red gleam. The Fury waited.